Update. Am I the asshole for telling my girlfriend I will literally kick her out if she won't see a doctor? Original post here. Summary. My girlfriend was constantly sick, dizzy, and confused. I was getting angry at her about it because she refused to get help and it caused us to fight. It's been a long time since that post, but I received so much support and kindness from it that I wanted to give an update to anyone who may like to know what happened in the end. After many days and long nights in the with referral promises that never came to be, my girlfriend finally got a referral to some kind of diagnostic clinic that works with difficult problems. The early hospital visits were enough to know that she had ulcers, but she was still sick even after they were seemingly healed. So they did more tests at more visits. Sometimes all they could do was hydrate her, she is constantly dehydrated, and tell her she needs to take stronger vitamins because is always mildly deficient in a few. The diagnostic clinic ran a section of blood tests looking for every possible thing. Like 3 blood tests a week. She must have been screened for every disease in existence. They found some mild liver dysfunction. Sorry if I report this incorrectly, but she doesn't process bilirubin correctly as far as I understand it, and that is an important liver thing. After that, they still tested her for every gastro and liver disease under the sun, and it looks like she has a genetic thing that, sometimes but not always, causes stomach pain and puking. They basically told her that it sucks but isn't life-threatening and all she can do is avoid putting stress on the body. So she has actually gotten much better at sleeping regular hours and not pushing herself physically and trying to drink enough water, or Gatorade, which she now claims to be superior to water, but whatever, it seems to work. She still throws up suddenly if she gets stressed out, but it's much less frequent and for at least 2 months hasn't been getting randomly confused, so that's a good sign. She says now that she has an answer, it's easier to handle and I am not really pushing past that because it seems to be working. She isn't angry with me anymore and said I wasn't wrong to be upset, and she apologized for being difficult. But she says she was initially overwhelmed with never getting answers and never knowing how to eat or act to make a difference. So she never tried. She seems embarrassed about it now. We had a lot of conversations about how to deal with health issues in the future, and I also apologized and said I'd really try not to lose my temper if she gets sick again, but it will be easier if we talk about it sooner. I think we are on the same page now and things are way better than before. She even saw the original post and said the comments helped her realize that this was actually scary to other people, where she didn't think it was noticeable to others at first. She still said I was too harsh to lash out at her, as some of you mentioned, and I'd agree. The compromise was to talk about things more often so neither of us has to feel like worry is building up over time. Thanks to everyone who reached out after the first post with thoughtful responses. It meant a lot and we might not be totally there yet, but we are making good progress. Exclamation mark. Glad you updated. It sucks, but it happens. In high school everyone was convinced I had an eating disorder because I rarely ate in front of people, because I would get sick when I ate. I had ulcers, still do. When I get extremely stressed I can't eat, or if I overeat I get sick. Let her know it gets better, you find out what you can deal with and don't. At least for me. A fair number of chronic illnesses are actually pretty hard to diagnose. There isn't one specific test or image that can diagnose a lot of things. It can be really hard and depressing to be ill and keep going to doctors and getting tests and getting no answers. So I have a lot of empathy for your girlfriend's situation. I have multiple chronic conditions and it took almost 5 years to get diagnosed and get on a drug lifestyle regime that works. I'm glad she's doing better. One thing that might help her doctors in the future if she's up for it is to track her symptoms. I use a bullet journal to track my symptoms and what I eat. It helps nail down triggers. There are a ton of apps too. Sounds a lot like cluster headache. I have been in her shoes, they couldn't find a thing. They kept asking me if I was pregnant. Years later I met someone with similar symptoms going through the same horrible process. She had cluster headaches. Literally only having extra oxygen helps with her. Sometimes doctors can't really find what it is. I'm genuinely shocked that nobody here realizes that she has likely dealt with this her whole life in milder forms and has always been told nothing is wrong with her or she just needs to be healthier. She, like many others, has likely been told her problems are in her head or are period-related and she should just deal with it. Always being dismissed by physicians is incredibly exhausting and upsetting, and leads to fear of seeking treatment. People were quick to say she could be self-inflicting with alcohol or an eating disorder, but what about the fact that women's health is often ignored? I hope they can eventually figure out the problem and find a solution, instead of stopping at symptom discovery. Good luck to you both. I have CVS, cyclic vomiting syndrome, and stress is my main trigger. Basically anytime I get too stressed I hurl. Could be a million tiny things, could be one big thing, and sometimes I just puke for no reason. It sucks, and I feel bad for your girlfriend. Kudos to you for making her see a doctor finally, and for helping to make sure she's properly taken care of and learning how to take care of herself. I'm glad things mostly worked out in the end. You were right to be worried and your outburst came from a place of care and concern so is forgivable. Just a random thought, your GF's symptoms reminded me of acute porphyria. Whilst it's rare it sort of fits her symptoms. Can be treated for with a urine sample. Just a thought, don't know if she's still seeing a doctor or tested for it already. Hope she continues to improve. I'm so glad you got her help. I have something called gastroparesis that sounds similar to what she has, and the thing is, when you aren't able to keep food down, it really interferes with your ability to think clearly so you sometimes need others in your life to step up and advocate for you, the patient, to get the help you need. I'm glad you stuck by her and helped her get some clarity. I would look up dysautonomia as well as POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and keep those in mind too. And she's so right about Gatorade, haha. Also, check out something called Liquid IV. I like it even more than Gatorade, plus it's got electrolytes, so if you like the movie Idiocracy you can have fun making Brondo references. Please ignore if it makes no sense. Just wanna say, Gatorade is way better than water for people with stomach issues. It has electrolytes and some calories as well, but it's fat-free and very basic in ingredients. I lived off of it, like it literally saved my life, when I had pancreatitis as a kid. Happy to hear your girlfriend is doing better, and you guys seem to have a very healthy and communicative relationship, which is awesome. Wishing you two the very best. So my dad had a problem processing bilirubin. For years they told us it wasn't life-threatening and his blood work was fine. He would get super nauseous all the time. It wasn't until they did a liver biopsy as a last resort that they found out he was in end-stage liver failure. His blood work never showed it and he doesn't drink or do drugs. It's completely genetic and dietary. He would get confused because his liver wasn't filtering out ammonia from his brain. We thought he had dementia for a while. Now that he's on meds it's better. He still needs a transplant, but if it was caught earlier he wouldn't be in this spot. All this to say is that it wouldn't hurt for her to see a liver specialist. Your liver can heal itself with the correct diet and medications. Does she get jaundice? It's fairly common for people with liver issues. I suffer from IBS without a definitive cause. Gone to a number of doctors and gotten a colonoscopy and found nothing. Sometimes you just know when your gut is going to be disagreeable with you. In my case, when I get that feeling I have to eat salads and other more vegetarian-style foods, or hold off eating. About the Gatorade thing, when you are dehydrated, water is not good for you because it depletes your already low electrolyte level. Sports drinks, Pedialyte, anything like that is better for you in that case. The bilirubin thing sounds like it is Gilbert's syndrome. I was diagnosed with it last year. I found a support group for it online if that helps. Facebook. Has she been tested for POTS? You can do this cheaply by measuring her heart rate sitting and then standing, and if it's more than a 30 bpm increase then she has POTS. The nausea, dizziness and confusion is all too familiar. Please check out this. Your original post completely aligned with the symptoms, especially the appearing drunk. But also the liver results, the clumsiness, the aversion to food, the throwing up, her feeling okay, living off low-carb drinks, etc. It's pretty rare and I really doubt they would have tested for it. Sounds like cyclical vomiting syndrome. It is Gilbert's syndrome? My family has that. It's very common and mostly causes no symptoms, but my brother will vomit if he eats too much fat. Particularly deep-fried battered fish for some reason. Maybe let her know to avoid greasy food. We all eat very healthy, so it's not usually a problem. As person with a moody stomach, I never knew what made it moody, but luckily my doctor was willing to try something that might work, and luckily it did. I know it a pain not knowing on both sides, but hiding from your fears is definitely the wrong way to handle it. Maybe it not the stomach that is the source of the problem but something else. Bugs can be weird that way sometimes. I wasn't active on here during your original post. But after reading it, and this update, I'm so relieved for her and you. I understand her frustration with never getting clear answers. It took 7 years to figure out what was going on with me, but it wasn't life-threatening, so docs didn't seem to care much. And man, did it suck. Once there was a diagnosis, everything changed. I hope the future is brighter now, for the two of you. Edited to clear up my point. After reading both posts, I've got a question. Did they test for gastroparesis? My husband has it and it prevents the food from being digested in a timely manner. If he eats too often or too much, he'll get sick. They've got a few meds that help reduce the issue, but overall, you just have to learn to live with it. So glad she went to a diagnostic clinic. It sucks that she's still sick, but at least you know now. My friend has something similar where occasionally he guts will just fold up and be like, lol, no digesting today. Not quite enough to he an obstruction, but enough to make her barf. Gaten is good because it has electrons, but Pedialyte works too. I have a lot of empathy for her. I had months this summer of stomach issues that kept me on Ensure, bone broth, a lifesaver, and vitamins. It's hell, and it's so paralyzing when you know eating will lead to such pain. You learn to ignore hunger pretty fast, but it's hard to ignore the lethargy and weakness that come along with it. I'm glad she got some answers. Tell your girlfriend she's right. Water sucks. It really, really sucks. Gatorade not only quenches your thirst, it tastes better too. Sorry, just wanted to throw some Waterboy references. Glad she's doing better. I hate to be an armchair medic, but perhaps have her look into dysautonomia. The dysfunction of the autonomic nervous system, postural orthostatic tachycardia, and also gastroparesis, paralyzed digestion, which can cause vomiting and nutrient deficiency. It might not be that at all, but it's rare and it sounds similar to what I have, so maybe it might give her ideas. Saying Gatorade is better than water was a huge hint to me, as that's something they suggest for people with low blood pressure. Also, she maybe is craving salty food? Again, maybe I'm off, but it sounds possible. As someone who took years to get a diagnosis, I feel for this. Also, Gatorade can be dehydrating. I have kidney issues myself, and have had doctors tell me to avoid it. Instead, try flavoring water, or seltzer water. It helps me drink more water. So I have stomach issues. I always have. Acid reflux, heartburn, throwing up, and everything under the sun. I cut out gluten. Didn't help. I cut out dairy. Didn't help. Cut out red meat. Nothing helped. So I started taking probiotics, and I feel like I can finally eat and be normal. Just a small suggestion from a fellow tummy-troubled person. Bit late to the party, but Gilbert syndrome is one of the things someone can have that means your body doesn't process bilirubin properly. In the above case, it's usually livable without worry, but it's something you get checked every few years. I never knew I had it until one medical picked it up. So basically she seems to have a severe version of Gilbert syndrome. Damn. An ex of mine had it. Didn't really cause him problems, but the jaundice worried the crap out of me the first time I noticed. Glad she's doing better and is under medical care now. Here's a link about Gilbert syndrome. Oh shit, she has Gilbert syndrome? That's really odd because I never heard of this being a side effect. I have it and all I get are gallstone pains. Gilbert's is a genetic condition where your promoter region, a bit of DNA that ensures your body produces each protein, for one of the enzymes involved in processing bilirubin, a product of red blood cell destruction, is too long, only by 2 base pairs usually, which goes to show how small mutations can have a big impact. As far as I'm aware, the symptoms tend to be fatigue, nausea, gallstones and their associated pain. Haven't heard of it causing vomiting, but maybe that's just from the ulcers. Glad she got to the doc in the end. A lot of this sounds like me when my cyclic vomiting syndrome was at its worst, when I was first truly recovering. I couldn't keep food down and rarely had an appetite, and the dehydration made me constantly dizzy and confused. It's really heavily linked to mental health too. Gatorade actually is superior to water when you're vomiting, shitting or sweating a lot. You're rapidly losing electrolytes that are essential for functioning, and Gatorade replaces them while water doesn't. I have POTS and have to drink it all the time. I wish I could figure out what's wrong with me. I keep getting tests and things keep coming back normal. I asked my doctor to refer me to a rheumatologist, but he instead just did more tests. I can definitely understand giving up. Glad for the update. Sometimes a person suffers so long and learns to brush it off like it's nothing when they never get answers that they start to discount the way it makes others feel, too. An attitude of, well, the doctors can't give me an answer, I must be overreacting, sort of thing. The doctors saying your tests are all normal doesn't mean that something isn't actually wrong. Others have likely already suggested this, but I have had similar issues, and cannabis helps immensely when the nausea gets out of control. Prayers for you and your girlfriend for strength and healing. Very glad she got the help she needed. As an aside, I struggle to hydrate enough due to medications I am on. What I find helpful is Mio or other sugarless flavor additives, as well as peppermint tea. If she ever wants to wean off Gatorade towards the evening, those might be tolerable alternatives for her. I didn't see your original post, but I'm so thankful for the update. Honestly, I have this weird thing where I randomly will throw up at night or during the day, and I always thought it was due to my anxiety, but maybe I should get some blood work done too. I hope everything goes well for you both and that she continues to improve. I haven't had anything like what your girlfriend has, but I've had different problems, and it is really easy to give up after a while when you go to different doctors and don't get any answer. It's expensive and they look at you like you're exaggerating or making it up, and it is really demoralizing. It's easier to accept that this is just the way you are and manage however you can, because it feels like there is no point in trying anymore. Long story short, I just wanted to say that your girlfriend has my sympathy. I'm glad she has some help now, and it's wonderful that she has people to care and support her through it. I'm glad they found out what it is. It does make a huge difference actually knowing what it is and what it does. I have a rare vocal cord disease and spent 2 years thinking I was dying. Then I got diagnosed, and although it can kill, it generally doesn't, so I'm so much happier now I know what it is. Glad you both sorted it out maturely. It can take many common diseases like lupus up 7 years to get diagnosed in women. She should expand the search from just gastro diseases to systematic diseases. And keep looking. This is your girlfriend now. I hope you're proud of what you've done. I assume the doctors checked into this, but some classes of stomach ulcer are caused by bacteria. If they're left untreated for a long time, you can develop gastritis, basically inflammation of the gastric tract. So antibiotics, and then being careful to avoid things that cause inflammation. With her history, I doubt they'd advise taking anti-inflammatories, unfortunately, so NSAIDs are off the table. But a good dietitian might be able to help. Look for one with experience with FODMAP. Glad there's been some resolution. If she's really into Gatorade, in case you aren't aware, it comes in powder form, so you don't have to waste so much plastic. Good luck and hope she keeps on top of it. Man, I would get dizzy spells randomly and get super nauseous for a few hours. Usually I can just sit through it, but now when it happens I find myself unable to take it and actually end up vomiting. Can happen anytime out of nowhere, but usually when I am in front of the computer. I am lazy to go see a doctor since I probably have to go through a lot of tests which would rack up the costs. And I am Asian, so Asian parents will just brush it off and say, you use your phone too much, you sleep too less, etc. I'm glad this worked out. I was very sick several years ago from osteomyelitis due to infected chronic diabetic ulcers. I was also in heavy denial. I thought if I put myself to bed it would pass. My wife threatened to leave me if I did not go to the hospital. Finally went to a medicenter, where I collapsed and was rushed to the ER in septic shock and organ failure. She saved my life. fatigue, dizziness, mental fog, dehydration. Has anyone looked into dysautonomia, autonomic dysfunction POTS? It's common, but rare in the sense that most doctors have never heard of it, and therefore it can take many years to get a diagnosis. Check out Dysautonomia International for more info. Typically gets diagnosed by a neurologist or cardiologist, although you need to find one that has experience or knowledge. Like I said, a lot of doctors don't even know it exists. Best of luck. The case of being confused and getting spaced out is mainly because she was severely stressed out. The brain needs tons of water both for lubrication and to function normally. So yes, I'm personally going to have to call you an asshole but for taking too long to act. Ulcers do grow over time and this could have gotten worse. You guys will have to see a nutritionist too to advice on her diet. And no dilly-dallying on this please. It really is important as I too have ulcers but am recovering. But the two things I'll tell you work for me are garlic and yogurt. She might be different. Has she tried seeing a neurologist? That sounds like a problem with her brainstem. Hi, from the symptoms you're mentioning I would urge her to go back to gastro and get a gastric emptying test. It sounds like slow motility. I was throwing up 10 times a day, dizzy, weak, and malnourished but after enough fighting we got 2 of these done and I was diagnosed with gastroparesis. You probably won't see this because I'm so late responding, but is it called Gilbert's disease? I have it too. Ah, well I hope she knows you genuinely care. Medical shit is hard when people don't listen or it takes forever to diagnose.